Yes, everyone, what's going on? My name is Stephen Howson. This is Stretford Paddock, and we do have some news for you. I'm as shocked as you. I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys. And it's a player that I've been waffling on about for a long old time, and that is Saul Niguez. Can someone do us a quick share on my channel as well, please? Thank you. So there's a little bit of news coming out, and it's in basically everywhere because everyone's scratching around for news. So as soon as someone has anything, everyone's like, ooh, 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 ooh. And then they all copy it as well. So here's what they're saying. So Manchester United and Manchester City have both made Atletico Madrid's Saul Niguez a transfer target amidst his ongoing contract wrangle. Sounds like he's in the middle of contract negotiations, and this could just be the old switcheroo that happens in contract negotiations where they're like, probably going to sign, but let's go and get United and City involved. We've literally, the Spanish club have that in their to-do list when renegotiating with a player. So I would be wary from getting too excited, even though it is a player that I covet hard for United. I honestly think he would be someone that maybe doesn't complete our midfield, but goes a long way to making our midfield look a lot more complete. I think he's an excellent player. We saw the other week against Liverpool, Thomas Partey got all the headlines for the very, very good individual defensive job that he did, but I thought Saul Niguez was the sparkle and the quality alongside him. I don't think either of them quite do the same job without each other in that particular game, but I do think that Saul is someone that would... I actually think Thomas Partey fits the Premier League as well, to be honest. I think both of them are excellent midfielders, and I would kill for both of them to be in a United shirt. A sticking point for me, I think he's a good age too, 25. A sticking point for me is this release clause. There was some talk about a month or so ago that Atletico are aware of the release clause is fairly high, and that's the whole point of the release clause, is that they're meant to be a bit eye-watering. So they would actually be willing to talk for somewhere in the region of 80-90 million. I think he's worth that. I think in the current market, 80-90 million is a fine price to pay for somebody like this. If we paid 80 for Harry Maguire, I put him probably on a slightly higher level than Harry Maguire, so I would have no issues paying that whatsoever, providing it didn't impact other signings. If it's like you can sign one, 90 to 100 million pound player, and that's you, I'd rather sign, 250s if that was something that you could do, because I think we need depth as well as pure star quality in a squad. But what do you guys think? What do you reckon? Is there anything in this at all, or do you reckon it's purely just part of the process of renegotiating a contract? He's already on a ridiculously long contract. I believe it was an 8-year contract that he signed. 2026 is when it runs out. Yeah, so he's still got another 6 years to go. He's obviously 2 years into it. It was an 8-year deal, wasn't it? Outrageous deal. Similar to what United signed Brian Robson up when we stopped. I think it was AC Milan taking him in the middle of the 80s. They said, all right, he said, if you're not going to let me go to Italy, because United wanted whatever Maradona was going for. That's how very highly valued Brian Robson was to Manchester United in the 80s. A lot of you are too young to remember him. I'm really too young to remember him. I sort of remember him being old and a bit knackered. But everyone, all the older lads they used to go to match with and that, they're just like, Brian Robson can never do any wrong. United signed him up for, I think, a 7 or 9 year contract, 7, in the middle of the 80s to see him all the way through to that first title winning side. For him to not leave, which is similar to what Atletico have done here. Obviously highly valued, highly touted. His contract will take him literally his entire career, essentially 31 it'll take him to, which is outrageously good in it. But let's get your comments in, get your questions in as well, and I'll get answering some of those shortly. I'm just going to pull up the old comments. How's everybody doing amidst all this carnage? Hope everyone's lives haven't been too disrupted. If you're are you at college or school or anything like that? Has that all been shut down for you? Let us know. I've just turned the brightness off instead of the volume. That was good, wasn't it? There's been a few people in the comments mentioning that they've had relatives pass away and that, which is very sad. So hopefully everyone's coping just fine. How much would I be willing to pay, considering Partey's release clause is apparently 50 mil though? Yeah, I'd definitely be interested in Partey. And I think at that price, he is an absolute must-buy, to be honest. If you've got the budget available to do that, because this isn't fantasy football, is it? You don't know what United are dealing with. Was half of our business this summer going to be focused around selling Pogba? So maybe we had 100 million earmarked for new signings, and then another 100 million should Pogba go. Like, that might have been all allowed to be used. So maybe you get someone like Partey and you get a Grealish, and you've definitely leveled up your midfield. that's cost you 100 million between the two, somewhere in that. And then if Pogba goes, you bring in a Sancho for that sort of money. I think that would be a good use of the money, but obviously I don't know how much we've got to spend. It might be 500 million. I very much doubt it, but we have no idea, do we? We literally have not a clue. Saul times McSauce times Bruno as a 2. 3, 8 and Scott Holding. That's a really well-rounded midfield. Party Fred Bruno. It looks better, doesn't it, than Pereira and what we've been playing lately. Don't buy anyone. Harsh times are coming. Football will never be the same. Well, if that's the case, United are already a fucking 700 million in debt. Let's go out wild, eh? No one will pay 100 million for Pogba. Recession is coming. Football misses them because the TV money is outrageous. I think the TV money is going to come through, actually. Maybe this is something we should talk about on the podcast next week. Is the bubble going to burst? I think that would be something that's worth exploring. Maybe we'll get someone who actually knows what the fuck they're talking about rather than just us two speculating. But I think that'd be quite a worthwhile thing for us to actually look into. It ain't Thomas Party, it's Party Thomas. Is there a joke in there that I don't get? We need a proper Ndidi-like DM. It really depends. Sometimes you don't necessarily need one. Like, City can play 2 very attacking number 8s. You'd almost call them both number 10s. And then they can have someone like Gundogan in behind them, who's not exactly Kante, is he? He's a very good footballer that's got that sort of Carrick-like incisive passing into the final third and into the channels. There's a different way of doing it, but you have to be elite to be able to know that you're going to control a game. If you're going to be a team that's constantly getting attacked and countered all over the show, you might need to have something a bit more physical in there. Pogba has to play for United for a bit because no one will want him at the moment and he can't prove his worth at the Euros. Might be better for both parties to play him for a bit and up his value. I think that's probably why you might see him behave a little bit. If he signs an extension, that makes it different, I think. But is he going to sign an extension? I couldn't tell you. Let's see any more questions. First priority should be a right winger, then a midfielder. As good as Dan James has been, we can't afford to go into a new season without a dedicated right winger. Yeah, I'd tend to agree with that. Don't see the point in buying Grealish. He's another left-sided player. Would rather have Saul because he's what we need. I think that we're probably not quite seeing the picture of what Ollie's got and he wants to play in his head. And I think there's possibly quite a fluid midfield that he's trying to achieve. Yes, Grealish is playing off the left. Doesn't mean that's necessarily where he'll line up and exactly how he'll line up for United. Maybe they've seen something that they'd like to try and blend in and around everything with him. It's probably delayed due to the virus, not that he's leaving Atletico. It could be that, but like, what have agents and clubs got to do at the moment? I could imagine quite a lot of negotiations get sorted out in this time where no one knows when the season's coming back. That seems like something like you're going to assume that football will come back. You're going to assume that clubs will resume football activities. We just don't know if it's going to be in 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, 4 month or 5 month. We don't know what that's going to be, but I'd be pretty confident telling you this time next year football's getting played. I'd almost be pretty confident to tell you this time in 6 months football will be getting played. I think 6 months seems like it could be enough to clear it up. That would put us in September, and you would assume that we can rock and roll it for the start of next season. Only thing I worry about is Sancho. That he's a right-footed right winger, and if we can't get him, what's our plan B? Odegaard. I don't know. Odegaard, I wouldn't call a right winger either, to be honest. But what's the issue of a right-footed right winger all of a sudden? Why is that an issue? Has it been an issue for him playing on the right for Dortmund? I'm going to say no. 6 months before flu season. Now, that is an issue. But you'd hope that there's been some sort of immunity been built up. I am obviously not a doctor. I couldn't possibly speculate on that. Or maybe I could, and that'd be interesting. But you shouldn't take any of my advice. I fancy going on a product brand range rampage to relax my stress. I'll start with Apple. Okay. Even if he wants to sign an extension, I'd get rid. I can't listen to the circus around him anymore, says James. I'm totally with you on that, mate. we seem to be building a character of a team and a typeset of a team where everyone sort of feels like, we're mucking into this together. And it does feel like he's almost an outsider to that group. And he seems to be behaving for himself rather than for what's the interests of the group. And ultimately, that's going to be the difficult thing. Manav says the circus around Pogba now is certain channels running out of content and changing their minds to keep it fresh up the fucking paddock. Can a season be postponed further, or is the next thing cancel a season? I think there's a very real chance that if it's not close to completion, I reckon that they might give it like a week over or something like that, but if it's not close to completion by June the 30th, I think they have to cancel it. You can't disrupt 2 seasons, because you can kill this one now and then start next season and have that one fine. You can't fuck 2 seasons. And then next season and the season after, you've got the Euros is in the summer next year, and then you've got the World Cup in the middle of that following season. It's going to be fucked for a few years. So I almost think that you have to null and void it, because there just isn't the time. You can't manufacture more time. You have to drop something. Something needs to be cancelled. You can't just be like, well, we'll just squeeze it in. Don't work like that. Like, if you've got a bus and it holds 100 people, you can't fit 200 people on it. Don't work like that. Say Sancho falls through, would I be happy if we go back for Dybala? Not really a proper right winger, but class nonetheless. I think we're trying to go for a bit more of a dynamic, aggressive, athletic sort of side, and Dybala is like a young Mata, isn't he? And I don't really think that that's the direction that we're going in. Not to say Juan Mata can't have good games in this team, but it's a significant investment in a direction that doesn't actually look like it's the full direction that we're looking to go for. Righty, I'm going to wrap it up there, but what's coming out rest of the day, Joe? Oh, we do have Late Night Live later on. I've got some very... That's what we didn't do this morning. I've got some very special guests coming. Totally forgot about it yesterday. On my channel later, if you want to come and join me live at 8 o'clock, we have got the Slow Readers Club, a fucking brilliant Mancunian band, which you definitely need to be coming and checking out. They're going to be playing some live music for us. It's going to be absolutely fucking epic. They're United fans, they're Reds, they're local. They've got an album which has just dropped, and obviously they can't go and do all the promo for it because of the virus and all the gigs and the pubs and stuff shutting. So please come and give us your support and give it a share later. Honestly, it might be the maddest podcast we've ever had. So come and check that out. Joe's live later. I think there's going to be a transfer review. There's all sorts of shit going off. I'll see you in the next one.